listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for being here today. You know, it's always a pleasure to know you're out there listening. It's for that woman that made a transition, that woman that changed something in her life, or it happened to her. That's why Second Wind was created, for you. It's all about you. Now, you know, I promised to also have the best guests on for you because they would have so much to give you, another tool in your kit to help you conquer the day. So let me tell you about my guest. Kelly Browne is her name, and she lives on the West Coast, but we forgive her for that. She can't help that. She chose it. But she is a 5-time best-selling author. Kelly Browne is the go-to gratitude expert on thank you note etiquette for adults and kids. She lives in Los Angeles using social media to promote the magic of gratitude and mindful forgiveness. We are going to be talking today about her new book, which is 101 Ways to Create Mindful Forgiveness. Wow, Kelly, you really picked a big one on this. Forgiveness is a big one, heavy. But you've lightened the load, so it seems. So tell us about how this book came about.
Well, first of all, hello.
Hello.
Joyce. Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I am in Los Angeles, and I'm jealous that you're all in Texas. So that's just unfortunately the way that it is. I wrote the gratitude books several years ago, and there's also one for children. And the way this came about was the publisher had asked me if I would write a book on how to apologize. And during that time, I noticed that my mom wasn't feeling well, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And something told me that something was really wrong. And it turns out that my parents were in the worst environmental disaster in the history of the United States. And that was the Alicio King and gas blowout in Los Angeles, And then my child was thrown from a horse and was catastrophically injured. So when I went back to getting through this period of my life, and my agent said, Kelly, come on, let's get back on it. I couldn't write a book on how to apologize because the key component was forgiveness. And it really, here I was so traumatized myself, and we all have experienced trauma in our lives from personal trauma of people being disrespectful or lying or being unfaithful or death, or there's some catastrophic things that have happened. How do you move forward? How do you get on? And I saw that there was not a lot of books on the market that just addressed open-endedly, like they're more specifically geared towards a specific faith and an infidelity and their story, but it didn't cover, it wasn't universal. That forgiveness is for everyone. I was raised as a Catholic, and so my background was more Christian. But I really felt that forgiveness is for everyone, and that was kind of my heart through this book, is that it really speaks to all cultures and faiths and encompassing a universal message.
Do you think that when somebody faces a need to forgive, do you think they face it through their faith, or do you think they face it through a decision?
I don't know how many times in the Bible it says forgive, 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 forgive. right?
Right.
And I think there is a quote like, that essentially is, if you want to be forgiven, then you must forgive yourself, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think that we can look at it from a spiritual point of view. Of course, like I think that speaks to many of us. Like it's really love, right? It comes down to loving yourself, loving other people. Um, it's a very hard thing to put down the sword and say, I forgive you, and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also really important to, I was listening to, at my daughter's graduation from school, the priest that was speaking, he said, when you give forgiveness, it doesn't mean that people can just walk all over you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make a choice in your life if you want to renew the relationship
Mm-hmm.
and continue to have that person in your life. We all make mistakes. Every
Mhm.
single one of us make a mistake.
Mhm.
We say the wrong thing out of jealousy. We hurt someone's feelings. We really didn't mean it because we had a bad day.
Mhm.
So like having that like mindfulness, which is really our spirituality, right? Paying
Mhm.
attention to how we feel and who we want to be in the world, right? We want to be good people, really. We really, really do. It's really important, I think. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and I think that's a really critical part of our human nature too.
Mhm.
Comes down to love.
Yeah. Um, I think for me, when I think about forgiveness, it is both of those. It
Mhm,
is a decision, and it really, really is something you have to depend on your faith,
mhm,
because sometimes we go blindly forward, but we're still bitter in our heart. But we hear that you must forgive, you must forgive, you must forgive, and we think they're letting them off the hook to
mhm,
the pain that they caused us, the trauma they caused it. And so that's the reason I call it such a difficult, heavy part of living, to say forgiveness and to give forgiveness. Do you have any
Well,
more to say?
when you talk about bitterness, Joyce,
Mhm.
you're really talking about holding a grudge. So you really
Ah,
didn't forgive that person. And I
mhm,
think that there's a difference between like saying, I forgive you, and therefore it's okay that you did this to me, or it's okay that my child was injured, or look at, it's not okay. And
mhm,
those people that caused us harm should be held accountable. I
mhm,
think what's different is that the way we hold it in our body, the way we process it, we have to be able to find peace within ourselves to
mhm,
say, this happened. And if I carry this bitterness, if I carry this grudge, then it's going to make me sick. It's going
mhm,
to make me not feel well, which is
mhm,
what happened to me. I
mhm.
couldn't save my mother. I couldn't from this catastrophic
Yes.
disaster, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't save my child. I couldn't go back in time and stop
Mhm,
it. I now had to deal with, okay, like how do I move forward? When
mhm,
I'm having an anxiety attack over, remembering those emergency room doors opening and the doctor not being able to tell me what was going to happen, right?
mhm.
Because life, I had no control. I had
Right.
no control. I
Mhm.
had to put it in God's hands. That's how I believe. I
Right.
called upon my faith and I said,
Mhm.
please help me, because in your darkest hour, don't we all pray to God and say, oh, please help me through
Mhm.
this nightmare, right? We,
Yeah,
we all do.
we all do.
There is actually an exercise that I found in this wonderful book called The Book of Forgiving by Archbishop Desmond Tutu and his daughter, Mofu
Mm.
Tutu. And he
Mhm.
didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize for nothing. And he wrote this book, The Book of Forgiving, about apartheid, right?
Mhm.
And and that doesn't speak to all of the United States because we don't live in South Africa, but, and also like, we're not experiencing those atrocities, right? But
Mhm.
but what the message is so brilliant, and that is, how do we forgive people that have caused us such excruciating pain, or killed
Mhm.
our family, or persecuted,
Right.
And so in his book, which I included in mine, and on the cover of the book, there's a blessing from his daughter, Mofu, which I so appreciate. He said, if you were to pick up a stone, I'm showing you a stone,
Mhm.
and this represents your burden, your bitterness, your grudge, the thing that happened that you can't let go of, the parent that didn't love you, the parent that caused you harm, or the violation of your soul, or your body, or murder, or a horrible thing.
Mhm.
And you were to pick this up in the morning and carry it around with you all day long and never put it down.
Mhm.
How is this making you better by carrying this? How
Mhm.
does the stone feel about it? And when you put that burden down at the end of the day, it's like a relief. You're not carrying it anymore. It
Right.
doesn't mean that stone didn't come into your life, but what it
Right.
means is that let's say, I'm going to put that stone in God's hands. I'm going to let justice take its course. I'm going to let God, take over, or whatever you believe.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm not going to allow that to control me, make
Mhm.
me sick,
Mhm.
or color my day. And
Mhm.
that is what happens,
Mhm.
like, it's very hard sometimes to go back to the place where an incident occurred. You drive by it, or you remember it, you see a photo, and this is all like symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Mhm.
Where a scent, an image will bring you
Right.
right back into that moment.
Mhm.
So your podcast always talks about joy, finding the joy in life.
Mhm.
And I think that when we have these moments of crippling fear and anxiety and shame or whatever, we have to stop for a minute and look for the joy.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
have to.
Yeah.
For ourselves,
Mhm.
forgiving ourselves for whatever we've done, and
Mhm.
for others in our life.
Yeah.
And that is so important.
Right. Um, the oh, just went blank. There you go. Just
Well,
went blank.
you asked me to give you an example of joy. Is it
Mhm.
okay if we jump to that?
Sure. Yeah.
So, I was talking to my sister, who lives in Washington, D.C. And I said, Gretchen, what do you think? Like, how do you define joy? And she was saying, so many of us would say our children. And I thought 100% that,
Mhm.
seeing my child, like getting the news that my child was being born, or that I was expecting a baby.
Yeah.
And the nail biter, making when the baby is born. And
Mhm.
then I remember, I'm going to cry, when I hadn't seen my daughter. She is at college, and I saw her. I'm going to cry. And it was like my heart became so overwhelmed with joy, because I was so grateful to hug her and feel her and have her
Mhm.
back.
Mm. Mhm.
And how does that go into our lives? My mother would say, Kelly, um, the most valuable thing that you can give in your life is a smile. And I realized that a smile is part of life. A smile is love. A smile represents so much when you have nothing to give.
Mhm.
I've walked through the emergency room so many times, and I've just walked over to someone's bed, which I had no business, like, doing it.
Mhm.
But, you know, there were people that had come in from nursing homes, and I would just walk over and say, and smile and say, hey, you're going to be okay.
Mhm.
You're going to
Yeah.
be okay. And I think that is like a really important takeaway, is
Mhm.
that we must find the joy in our lives.
Mhm.
We must.
Right. I
So,
I really think people live their life, a lot of life, without realizing what joy is until
mhm,
you see a grandchild, your own baby. Then it comes clear. But just working toward creating more joyful
mhm,
instances in your life is really important so that you keep that positive, that uplifted self, yourself, so
mhm,
that you can be a reflection to other people.
100%.
I, this was, I kind of got the joy thing from Julia Cameron's book, It's Never Too Late to Begin Again. I don't know if
I
you
love
have that. Isn't
Julia
it?
Cameron.
I
Her
agree.
her book, The Artist's Way,
Yeah.
changed my life. That's
Uh-huh.
what made me, because that's a spiritual path to higher creativity.
Mhm.
That's like finding the joy in your life.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, Julia is a fabulous writer. I
Hmm.
think she doesn't write a bad book.
Yep.
But let's talk about you have written 5 bestsellers. Is that correct? I mean, you've been very blessed with really having wonderful books.
Oh, thank you. Well, it started out that my background is the entertainment industry. I grew up in the entertainment industry. My dad is a assistant director, producer of, hundreds of shows,
Mhm.
and motion pictures. And so I found myself in the entertainment industry as well, in production and development. And I worked on the motion picture Glory and Moonlighting. And so, but before all that, my mom had me do a lot of volunteer work.
Mm.
And so I grew up in a mother daughter organization that was a philanthropic base,
Mhm.
and it's called National Charity League.
Mhm.
And so we had to, I worked everywhere volunteering with my mom. And when it came time to when I got married, I decided that I would write everyone a thank you note for all the wedding gifts, right? Because that is the
Mhm.
right, proper thing to do.
That's right.
And we didn't have a lot of money. And I um, had gotten Crane stationery.
Mhm.
And every time I made a mistake, I'd have to rip it up. So I wrote everything on the computer so I could carefully think it out. And
Mhm.
I wanted to be thoughtful with how I wrote my note.
Mhm.
Because if somebody was going to spend $25, $100 on a gift, I wanted them to know I really, really appreciated their time, their effort, their love to make my life blessed. Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so because I was in development and I knew how to, I knew how to talk the talk, and I contacted some agents. And so that's how the Thank You Note book was born.
Mhm.
And I had no experience writing a book whatsoever. And I just did it. I literally prayed and said, God, show me the way. And
Mhm.
reading Julia's book opened me up, and it made me have that confidence of being able to put pen to paper and not being
Mhm.
afraid and not being judgmental. So
Mhm.
the first book, 101 Ways to Say Thank You,
Mhm.
that was sold to Sterling Publishing, which is Barnes and Noble. And then that went into, bestseller. And then it was reissued in like I think 2008. I can't, anyway, it's been issued 3 times, and now it's
Really?
with Simon and Schuster, right? And then, so now it's with Adams Media, Simon and Schuster. And then I did a version for teens and children because
Mhm.
it is so important for our children to understand, I don't think writing a thank you note is old fashioned personally. I think, especially in the digital age, a handwritten note is coveted,
Yes.
coveted.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
you can hand your child a book and it's very simple, they can just open it up to birthdays, holidays, spiritual, confirmation, bar
Mhm.
mitzvahs or quinceañeras, or, and they can copy it, job
Mhm.
interviews, college acceptances, thank you note, all of that. And along the way, I layered in wisdom
Hmm.
so that there would be a worldwide effort in building up our character and little nuggets of knowledge.
Right.
So there's 4 thank you notebooks there, and then the forgiveness book, which I never
Mhm.
thought in a million years that would ever happen. I never thought I would have this. Do we ever think we're going to have something happen and then live to tell?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I would never have thought in a million years. When they asked me, I thought, oh my goodness, what? And then little did I know what God's plan was for me.
I
Like,
know.
so I don't want to say anymore, like what's in store. I just hope now that I win the lottery, I'm going to go buy a lottery and say, oh, please, please, I've done everything. Let me have a chance now to, you know, do something nice for other people. So,
Yeah. Well, I think it's really a needed tool. There's so many people now that don't write notes. It's very
yeah.
seldom that I get them at all. And it's a quick text, oh, thank you, or something like that. But I do think that it's I I wrote notes. I'm in a garden club. Okay, I don't garden, but I'm in a garden club.
Mm,
And so I was writing notes to the women that had done the provided the food for one of the meetings. And because I just thought they never get thanked.
mhm.
And so I just wrote, so it was so simple. I didn't write much. I just said, thank you for providing a delicious. And I got such responses. I was surprised, honestly. And, but it made a big difference. And
Yep.
I actually saw it, you
Yep.
know.
See, and this is what I call the magic of gratitude. Right.
Hmm.
You witnessed it. You did
Hmm.
something kind. You took 5 minutes to take a note,
Right.
write it, put your love on, in 3 sentences,
Hmm.
put it in an envelope, seal it, put a stamp, and you sent it through the mail. You sent your love out into the universe. You sent
Right.
your joy.
Yeah.
And it was a surprise when she
Hmm.
opened her mailbox. And what was her reaction? Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Because, as women, especially, there's, I don't know what happens to us, but we sometimes get insecure, like, oh, did I do a good job? Do you think the ladies liked it? Do you
Yeah.
think it tasted good? Do you think they've, and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I went to Target, I went to the store, I went, you put a lot of effort into it.
Hmm.
And just sending that bit of sunshine, that bit of gratitude, the way she felt, you can just visualize it. It's like electricity. It's
Hmm.
magic, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And 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 you hit her.
I
And so
did.
now, how did you change that woman's day? How did you make her feel? Right?
Well, she felt she was worthy. She had
Exactly.
done something worthy and she volunteered and she felt she had done something good.
100%, which
Mhm.
in turn makes her want to give to others, and
Oh,
share.
that's a good point.
Yes,
Yeah.
because now she's going to say, oh, wow, Joyce touched me so deeply with that card, with that note. I'm going to send one to so and so,
Mhm.
because look at our handwritten notes are coveted timepieces. They should be treasured.
Mhm.
They are our spirit
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
a piece of paper. It's like when you look at Christmas cards, I think to myself, this is an opportunity for you to not just send it. I love the photos. I love the beautiful inscriptions, and I love them. I think it's so nice that someone thought of me. Wouldn't
Mhm.
it be so even more amazing if someone wrote in that card, you know, I want to thank you for the difference you've made in my life. You gave me joy during a time that I needed someone.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is the greatest gift of all.
Mhm.
Any time of year
Right.
is to send joy and love.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, my book is on its way. So, and I'm anxious to see it.
Oh,
But
for me?
share, yes, but
Oh,
share with my listeners some of the tools that you have put in your book. Can you just one of the tools? Because you say you have tools in here.
yes. So, the way I laid the book out was so that it wasn't something that you had to read cover to cover, because forgiveness is sacred.
Mhm.
Forgiveness for yourself,
Mhm.
forgiveness for others is so personal and so sacred. And sometimes, you can only handle a tiny bit.
Mhm.
So, I shared with you the stone tool.
I love the stone example.
Oh, yeah.
So easy to understand. So easy. And you can feel the weight as you put it down. I
Hmm.
like that one. I like it.
Yes. Thank you. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I visited a hotel in Arizona, and they had smooth black pebbles in their spa
Mhm.
area with a Sharpie, with a black marker. And
Mhm.
the stones were there so that you could write on the stone what you wanted to release. You could do
Mhm.
you could do it with a shell. You could do
Mhm.
it with a letter, anything. And
Mhm.
you walked out into the desert. You could walk out into the ocean, anything, anywhere.
Mhm.
And you could throw it and you can scream, I'm letting you go, whatever. But you release it to the world
Mhm.
with love, with light, or whatever. You can no longer harm me. I'm
Mhm.
letting you go. I think
Mhm.
that is a very powerful thing. I've seen
Right.
people walk out into a canyon crying, and pick up a stone on the ground and throw it. I myself, since I live here in Los Angeles, have walked, gone to the beach in Malibu, crying, praying for divine intervention, help me release the suffering that I'm carrying, and taken the shells that I've picked up and thrown
Mhm.
into the water. And you do feel that instant relief,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
People also write letters to to say they're sorry to
Right.
people who have departed.
Mhm.
And,
Oh, yeah.
you can, there's many ways of releasing that. Um, you can burn it, you can throw it in a fire pit, you throw it in your fireplace,
Mhm.
and, destroy it.
Mhm.
Destroy it.
Right.
No one has to read your words. I think one of the important things that Julia Cameron's messages are in her books is that this is your journey. This is your journey. And
Mhm.
the words you write on a piece of paper are there for only for your eyes.
Mhm.
And you can shred it, you can destroy it, you can let these things go.
Mhm.
All of these things that have happened color who we are as human beings. Like
Mhm.
I myself, as Julia Cameron's book Vein of Gold, my veins are filled with gold. I picked up the pieces of myself that were shattered, and
Mhm.
I had to put myself back together and be resilient.
Mhm.
I had to be resilient, not only for
Right.
myself, but for my children.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to be strong. What is that quote? I think it's from Eleanor Roosevelt about the tea bag and women. You don't know how strong we are until we get into hot water. I don't know the quote exactly, but it's like, that's true. That's true.
Well, I started Second Wind when I went through my divorce, and it was always, it was more to give support, but I'm always so moved by the greatness that women, once they go through something traumatic, like divorce or death, or it's that traumatic moment that somehow shifts their direction or gives them extra power or teabag, as you say. And they just end up creating something awesome. They move on, they put their life back together. It doesn't look the same,
Right.
but it doesn't have to look the same. And it's just always been, that's where Second Wind came from.
But you know what?
Right.
At this point in our lives, why would we want it to look the same?
Right.
Like we've already done that. Like this is a new chapter, and we have the ability to take the best and choose what we want and set boundaries with people that are not healthy for us.
Right.
The other thing I've learned in my 57 years is you can't make people love you. You can't. And if they don't want to be in your life, you can't make them be in your life. It's a choice. Just like joy.
Right.
And it's heartbreaking when you really love somebody and you want them to walk the journey with you. But if they don't feel that way about you, like you have to stop and think for a second. Okay, well, why am I choosing somebody who doesn't want to be with me?
Right.
Because there's just someone better. Now in
Right.
Texas, I see a lot of gorgeous men down there, and also women. But I'm following Yellowstone, and I'm seeing all these cowboy hats, and oh my goodness, I think I'm going to be moving to Texas.
We at least need to have a second little place down here, or come stay occasionally.
Yeah, and what's so beautiful about Texas is that there's so much pride and strength. I don't know what it is. Like it's so different in different parts of the country. But it's so beautiful to be there. I love it.
Well, one thing I've noticed about Texas and Texans is that we do have a pride about our state, and we kind of all consider it, we are Texans. So it's not I'm a Texan, it's we are Texan.
The community.
Yeah. So yes, I think sometimes that is different from other places. So anyway, but we are coming to the end of our time together, which I'm sorry to say, Kelly.
Me too.
Because I've so enjoyed being with you. But there was one more thing that I like to borrow from Julia's questions about joy.
Sure.
You shared, I think, one or two, but what would be three things that you would share with my listeners that they need to develop to have joy in their life?
So earlier, we talked about the smile, right? Smile. I think that I was speaking to a famous psychic one time, and I said, I see so many miracles in the Bible, and what happened? How come there's no more miracles? I don't understand. And they said to me, Kelly, life is a miracle. And I think that when we are looking for joy, we really need to look at the things that are the core of life, right? When you talk about being in your plant club, you're cultivating life, you're honoring life, sharing your smile, you're honoring that your life and that other person's life. And another bit of advice was from a woman. I was working on a movie in Georgia, and she said, every opportunity you have to celebrate something, always do it. And I thought that is the greatest piece of advice, because I then was like, for every holiday, from George Washington holiday or whatever holiday, Valentine's Day, I
Right.
always made sure that with my children, I baked something, because that baking gives me joy.
Mhm.
It's my love.
Mm,
It is my love into everything that I cook for them. That's my way of doing it. And so yes, it all comes down to embracing life
mhm,
every day, being grateful that you woke up. And I
mhm.
thank you, God, for another day, because we don't know how long,
Right.
right? Your
True.
life, my mom would say, your life could change in a phone call.
Mhm.
And, and that happens,
It does happen.
right? And I think that when we are with the women that love and support us, like in your garden club, like, you're creating joy in that moment, right?
Mhm,
Of being together. So
mhm.
that is what I would say. It's finding joy is in the smallest of things in life that we don't think, we don't look at all the time.
Mhm.
Think, the the things that don't cost money, like a smile, baking cookies and giving them, donating them to the senior center. Like, I try, if I have leftover food, I will drop it, at a homeless shelter or in the park, or I really
Mhm.
try to do little tiny things that give me joy, that make me
Mhm.
feel good, that
Right.
makes me feel like I've contributed to the world by
Mhm.
sharing that magic of gratitude, of it's joy.
Yeah.
It's I
Right.
hope I answered that question correctly and I got it.
You did. You
I
did.
hope
A
so,
plus. A
because
plus.
all right.
So if you just give me a few minutes, I'm going to say goodbye to my listeners, and then I'll be back with you. Just don't go anywhere. Just stay there.
Okay.
So anyway, my dear listeners, see, I didn't let you down. Wasn't this fabulous? Didn't you? I know you're walking away with at least some valuable information that you can put into your daily lives. And as I always ask, I love when you share. Share with a friend that's struggling today. She needs to hear a good message, and you can do that for her. Just simply send it to her when you get this. So I thank you for being here today. It always brightens my day when I know you're out there listening. So I hope this week is full of joy and happiness, and it's all up to you. It's in your hands. Have a great day. See you next week. Bye.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.